Hello YouTube, I'm coming to you from the Berkeley Marina, where I just got finished working out. Trying to get it together, get back on that health kick that I was on. I was doing really good for a couple of months, and then I just it went to crap for various reasons, and so I'm trying to get back on track. So I just got finished doing my working out. Got my bottle of water here with my little filter in it. I actually like room temperature water after a workout. But anyway, like I said, Berkeley Marina, lovely setting, lovely place to do a workout, and it actually feels really, really good to be outside. And so I think the interesting thing about my channel is it is about city van dwelling and how it might be different from full-time travel van dwelling, and people tend to think it takes away the pretty, and it doesn't have to. You can still have the pretty, it just may not be spread over as many states as it is for other types of vehicle dwelling. But anyway, in response to that, some of you noticed that I put up a poll on my YouTube channel in the community section that asked, why do most people watch van dwelling channels? Now, I will say this about the responses. They might be slightly skewed to the fact that you guys watch me. So if you're watching me, you're probably interested in how do people in a lower income bracket handle van life, or people who aren't digital nomads, or people who don't have disconnected jobs, how are they handling van life? So maybe the responses were skewed a little to that, because honestly, where the majority of votes went actually surprised me. I'm trying to pull this up on my phone right now and I'm struggling. But initially, so these were the choices. It was tiny home dwelling minimalism, reduced cost of living, travel adventure, necessity, and other. A lot of people picked other because it was a combination of the things already mentioned, not because there was something specifically different. But you always want to give the option for something you haven't thought of. Initially, which didn't surprise me, travel adventure seemed to be pulling ahead by a little bit, but by a very little bit. And reduced cost of living was only a percent point behind it. But it's kind of frozen where it is right now. It's kind of stayed in this, so where tiny home dwelling minimalism has about 19%, reduced cost of living as 37%, and travel adventure has 31%, with necessity at 4% and other at 8%. And I said a lot of the others, while I was asking what's your most important reason for being interested, a lot of the others in the comments was simply that it was a combination of the things above, which I feel is also true for me. I feel I got here out of necessity, but also it was also something I wanted. I wanted the freedom to do things like go to RTR last year, or go to Vancouver over the holidays, and that's things you can't do when you're trapped in apartment rent, because you're kind of obligated to that building, which some of those responses said. I want to highlight one response from Gus in a Bus, if I can get my phone to work. It's being annoying. So Gus in a Bus said, travel requires money, which might require avoiding rent and minimalist lifestyle, etc. Most are tied together, and this is generally true. By the way, if you're not subscribed to Gus in a Bus, you should be. And this is mostly true, which I reasoned when I got the poll, but usually somebody is kicked off in this direction for some reason. And for some people it's ooh, I saw van lifers out in the beautiful places. I want to be in those beautiful places all the time, which is a misnomer, because a lot of channels will admit you spend a lot of time in parking lots. Even if you're traveling worldwide, Walmart parking lots still probably pick up more of these guys than they talk about, because those aren't interesting videos. The places they experience in the middle aren't really interesting videos, and people can tend to talk about them, but they kind of push them to the side, and it's look, I'm in my beautiful location, isn't van life wonderful, ignoring the fact that street corners and parking lots and Cabela's and pilot parking lots are a part of the lifestyle as well, and you'll spend a lot of times figuring out how to get by in those in between locations. So yeah, the truth is they all do play together in some way, but usually people, based on what they consider their primary, will be motivated a certain way. Because honestly, in city living, it's easy for me to forget that I have access to places like this, because like I'm sitting around my van and I'm like, I really wish I could travel. And it's like, why do I want to travel? I want to travel to be in pretty places, to be in places I haven't seen before. And it's like, that doesn't require these long distances that people sometimes obsess over. Like, it's all about having that map and being like, I've been here, 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 and here. And it doesn't have to be, like, if you have a limitation, it doesn't have to be that. So I was very interested in the fact that most of the responses, like a lot of them cited that they were interested in the lower cost of living. Now, sometimes it's the lower cost of living to aid in travel. Sometimes it's the lower cost of living because they're just sick of giving their money away. And both of those are valid. It's like, all of us feel it, you know, you're just shelling out all this money and like, what are you getting for it? And also like, how much time are you actually spending getting to enjoy like the fruits of your labor? One of my favorite YouTubers is Static Camper Van for this reason, because he basically flat out set out to make his life that way. He has a sticks and bricks jobs. He travels, you know, during his vacation time, and because he lives in a small van, he's able to have an easy life in the city because it pretty much fits in anywhere, and he's able to conserve more money to do the things he wants to do. So yeah, what else we got here? So in the subject of people who necessarily aren't pushed into this by necessity, but are interested in just reducing their cost of living. And it's not like, oh, rent is killing me. It's like, I'm getting sick of it. So one of the responses to the poll was, rent is too expensive. I own my van outright and living in it reduces my monthly overhead by several $100s. I still have to pay gas, insurance, and maintenance, but I'd paid for those living in it or not, which is what I've always felt. It's like, I need a vehicle for work. So rather, like, that's not something I can give up. I can give up the rent, you know, if I have to make a choice, but this person didn't have to make a choice. They just decided it was too expensive. My food bill is the same. Parking is free. It's a no-brainer. Save up to $1,000 or more. So that's sort of like a motivation that's like completely motivated by finances. But it doesn't mean they don't have access to the other choices. Blue. This person is somebody who probably responded to the minimalism of the lifestyle. They said, personally, I was watching tiny house vids for ideas and inspiration on the design and DIY build of my own tiny house. And the Van Life Van Dweller vids, I can't say words, popped up in the playlist. I am also fond of the van life or mobility aspect. The open road and travel in the nomadic lifestyle. So it was a win stumbling across the van life movement. I didn't know it was trending or so popular. So this person was specifically pulled in because of the minimalism. And I have heard that a lot. Like, people are pulled into the concept of tiny houses, and usually like static tiny houses, and along that road they basically find a lot of commonality with sort of van life and RV living, because it's all tiny living. The only difference is when you kind of have a static tiny house, is more just about the minimalism. You don't have to worry about things like stuff being shooken around. Like, you can just like set up a pretty like countertop and not worry about if there's glasses on them, which you can't do in a vehicle. I wish my phone would stop refreshing. This comment is really simple, but I really like this one. And this one is, I guess, specifically targeted towards people who are sort of in a compromised position, and that's what leads them to it. It says, people making lemonade out of lemons. It's the beauty and resiliency of humans. I really like that one. Somebody just said all of the above. So P. Moore said, hi Dawn, so for me, it's adventure and minimalism. I want to live a life of freedom from stuff, but I also want the freedom to do what I want, when I want, and I'm almost there. You can kind of do what you want when you want, but there's still some rules. But I get where you're coming from. And this is an interesting one. It says, I actually live in a space where I don't pay rent. So getting my own van will add costs for me because my insurance will increase and so will my petrol costs. Petrol, that's like very not U.S. However, the thought of being able to travel and not pay hotel costs, having weekends where I can take off and enjoy life, especially in the summer, really appeals to me. And this is a really interesting comment. because this person is actually adding costs in order to enter this lifestyle. But if you want to travel, the cost to travel in this lifestyle is way better than like having to pay like hotels everywhere you go, or figure out where you're going to pay to stay the night, because like your house is with you. Like you don't have to think about all that. So that's a really, really cool comment. It makes a good point. And this is another reason why I did the poll, just to see like where people's heads were at, and also like, you know, how people's thoughts kind of line up with me on the channel. Somebody said saving money is my main concern, traveling is the second, which I think is valid, and I think it's something a lot of people forget about, especially when a lot of people feel like if they start a channel or a blog or anything about like van living or RV living, they feel like it needs to be about the travel. But there are other reasons, and like this person says, saving money is their main concern. The ability to travel is secondary to that. Like it's not all in one together. There's definitely tiers. Somebody said, and this is probably a person who picked other. This is why I said other is kind of that weird 8% really seems to go to one of the other categories. All of the above for me as well, especially minimalism. Travel and see the country along with sharing my dishes. I chef. We need to meet because I don't chef. And learning the different cultures and cuisines this country has to offer. I feel I need to experience nature and cook by some awesome lakes and beaches. That sounds wonderful, but I can't cook. So like I'd just be there checking out what you're cooking. But that's a noble idea, and that's a noble thought. And for this person, obviously, like travel is very hooked into the idea of this lifestyle. And obviously the other stuff goes with it, because it's, can I afford to do that unless I figure out a way to do this? You know, this will allow me to do that type of thing, which is a lot of people's logic. And this is a legitimate other. It says, it's interesting to watch other people live a similar yet different way than my own. I've learned so much from other people that are van lifers on YouTube. And that's legitimate. Some people are just like, hey, I'd like to see how people accomplish this. And that's why, you know, people like me exist, because we're willing to share. And in that way, we get to be our own entertainment without being like controlled by the evil corporate companies that like to do reality TV. What else do we have here? Ugh, I'm sick of my screen dying. This might be the last comment. Let me see if I can find one more interesting comment. This comment simply says, reduce cost of living, travel, adventure. Cannot afford to pay rent and travel. Which seems like traveling is the priority, but traveling isn't an option if rent is going to keep consuming all the money, which is another, you know, good example of sort of where I am. I feel like Static Campervan is that way too. Like as far as people on YouTube, I think he lines up a lot with me, even though he's not freelance. Early Chrome, maybe, when he still worked at the golf club and he still had some connections to the golf club where, you know, he did his events, he got paid for his events, but then, you know, he got to like go to places that were really pretty and like, you know, shoot some really nice videos that we all fell in love with on University Vanlife. So like there are multi-tiered reasons that play into each other for why people were interested in van life, and it was just really nice to sort of get some responses in here from you guys about why you're interested in it. If you're just interested in watching, you're like, these are interesting people, I like how they adapt, I like how they figure out how to do things, not having the standard ways to do them, that's awesome. If you're like, I'm interested in travel and the only way I can get there is to get rid of rent or reduce rent or somehow take rent out of the picture or your mortgage or whatever, that's awesome. If you're like, I just want to pay less, like I'm sick of all of my check going to rent or mortgage or whatever, that's awesome. These are all valid reasons, but I was surprised that cost of living pulled ahead of everything else. So that tells you about the state of the country, really. And especially because, like, all of my viewers aren't from, like, where I am. I know people are like, get out of California. California's too expensive. But a lot of places where jobs are, where people are super expensive and more expensive than what people are making in rent. So much so, people who aren't specifically invested in traveling are still thinking about living in vehicles because it's so insane. But anyway, even if you do live in the city, just remember, Travel doesn't have to mean big travel. You can still find views like this and places like this locally, and you can enjoy the world around you. So if you are in a vehicle, just don't get so stuck in there that it feels like this deep dark hole that you have to hide in. Get out, enjoy the world, and thanks for joining me for this video. See you next time. Did you find the information in this video useful? Well, the best way to help me continue to grow is to like, comment, and if you want notifications about future videos, please subscribe. You can also join us on Patreon and follow me on Instagram. Looking forward to the next time I hang out with you.